introduce the concept of informal fallacies. Let me just start reading here. Over the next few weeks, we're going to discuss what are called fallacies. Some of this information is arguably some of the most important information you will ever be taught in your college career. Okay, and you'll see specific reasons why I make that claim today and in the next couple lectures. Okay? So what is a fallacy? First, a fallacy is merely an error in thinking that people carry out. I think I've told you that before, but now you've got it here on the screen in front of you. Okay? And I've got a second description here. It is an occurrence where point one, a person asserts that an inference is true and that an argument exists, but where that's not actually the case, there is actually no inference, even though it's stated that there is. Okay? And we can specifically see that there's a logical error. This is the big case of where fallacies usually come in. Okay? Somebody will say, well, if A is the case and B is the case, then it certainly must be the case that C is true. But if you analyze it just a little bit, or maybe in some detail, you'll find out that no, there is actually not a clear enough connection between A and B to say that C follows. Okay? So we'll see a million examples of that over the next month. We've got so many examples, so don't worry if you're not totally clear on this instant, because it'll be you'll get many times to practice what exactly this means. So then secondly is an occurrence where we have no way of knowing if the attempted inference is correct. We cannot know if there is an inference or not, but it is demanded that it is the case that there is an inference. In other words, there might be scenarios where there's not enough information known to, somebody presents premise A, which has some data in it. Somebody presents premise B, which has some data in it. And then they say, well, therefore, conclusion C comes out of those two premises. And you get to a point where you don't want to say it's necessarily not an argument. You just want to say this is a scenario where we don't know what to say. Is it an argument? Isn't it? I don't know. There's just simply not enough information. But the person telling you about A, B leading to C is demanding upon you that there is an argument. There is a line of reasoning, an inference there. Okay, so this is what a fallacy is, and we'll start many examples right here in a minute. Which will... Oh, here we go. Here's an example right here. This is here's a number one type inference, or fallacy. Okay? There's no inference, but it's demanded upon you that there is one. Okay? Quantum particles, the little teeny building blocks that make up everything that we've talked about, that's what quantum particles are, act like pieces of information. Yeah, we're used to thinking, what that means is we're used to thinking of the world being composed of matter, like bricks and rocks and stuff. Something you can bang your hand against that has a surface and exists in space. Well, information isn't quite that same order or type of stuff. So if this claim were true, then it would mean that the little building blocks that make up everything don't have the properties of what a material thing usually exhibits. Okay, so there's the first premise. Second premise, quantum particles make up known reality. Okay, now that's seems to be quite well verified. That, in other words, there's tiny building blocks that make up everything that you see around you. Everything, stars across the galaxy, or your pen right in front of you. Okay, because if you break any of those things down into little building blocks, you can't do that. You can break things down into teeny little building blocks. And they have the same, you can see the same building blocks make up this thing as that other thing, and there are ways to also determine that they make up things far away, like a star that's 8 light years away or something. So now with these two premises, there's a conclusion which the arguer here wants to draw, which says that known reality is made only of information. Okay?
It's like your crystal wood.
Yeah, it's the same fallacy, isn't it? It's the same error exists. Yeah, so we're saying the tiny, tiny items of reality. Now this is a position held by many, many, physicists. This is a popular position to hold. These little building blocks just don't act like matter, they act like information. Now what does that mean? It's hard to tell. Okay, so this argument seems to imply, like you were saying, it seems to involve the same fallacy, because you're talking about the tiniest stuff, and all of a sudden you want to take those attributes and apply them to everything. It's very, very simple and clear error being made. Now, there is some strength to it, because, well, if everything is made up of these things, if that's true, that may or may not be the case, but it seems like something like that's going on, then, well, everything is those particles to some degree. Okay, so then why wouldn't it be the case that if everything, it's almost like saying if you have a brick building and the bricks are red, then the whole building is red, because the parts the quality of the parts are manifested at the level of the whole. Now that may or may not always happen, what the problem is. So there is some strength. Some of you might even think that that would be an argument, but it's too risky to say the qualities of the smallest, of the ultimate parts of some entity are certainly manifested at the level of the whole item that it composes. Okay, so here's another one. Here's a two-type inference where we don't have enough information. Consciousness is non-physical. Non-physical things are supernatural. You are composed of consciousness. You are supernatural. Okay? I happen to believe that argument to be correct. That's why it's here. Sometimes I have arguments I purposely put up because I know are bogus, so we can practice. But this one I put up because I've thought for years that this may be accurate. But okay, let's go through it one by one. Consciousness is non-physical. There's the first problem. How do we know? We've said that before in this class. And we've discussed this. And we've also discussed how academics, almost ubiquitously worldwide, will demand the opposite is the case. Okay, but there's evidence, no matter which position you hold, that consciousness is non-physical, that it's not made up of this kind of stuff, it's some kind of ethereal item of some sort, or whether you think it's physical, neither side can prove it. Okay? Why? Because there's simply not enough information present.
You have to be alive to show your consciousness. And if you kill someone, then you can't communicate, so you don't know it's physical.
Well, even that, point right now to consciousness, point to it for me.
You can't.
Well, can't the crystals in your head that we just talked about, can they?
And well, if that's established, that could change this.
Yeah, argue that. Does that lead to...
But then you still might have the same problem. Let's say this, pretend that a crystal, or sometimes people say a quantum atom will have consciousness in it. Say one of those two does. If you go look into a crystal or a quantum atom, all you see are the little particles. You don't see all of a sudden the feeling love or some element of consciousness.
Well, maybe that's what consciousness looks like, just those particles, that's what it is.
Well, maybe, but if I look inside my head right now and I feel a feeling, there you go. Think about my little baby boy filled with love. So I can see a feeling inside me. And if I look at a particle, they look totally different. Or if I look at a neuron, it looks like one is one category of stuff, and then the feeling over here is completely a different type of stuff altogether. Well, so to say that they're one and the same or they're related is difficult.
Isn't that why it's called a feeling? No, you really can't see a feeling.
I can, only in me. Or if I was telepathic, say, I could see it in you or Will or Nick or something, or anybody. But it's a different kind of seeing. It's not seeing like with my eyes. It's seen with the mind's eye, your eye of consciousness. Like if I close my eyes and think about a blue dragon, I'm seeing something, but not with my eyes. So there's a seeing apparatus that you have in your consciousness, but just doesn't happen to be using your eyes at that point. So it's almost like that other eye, the mind's eye, is what can see feelings. But I would say right now I can't see yours, but I can feel mine right now. So what do you think? You can see feeling. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. No, I just kind of think it's just a feeling. That's what it is. It's just a feeling. It's an experience that your body's having. You really can't see it. In my opinion. Just like another experience you're having. Like that's the sensation going through your body. You really can't. But
can you have any awareness of a feeling?
Perceive it.
Yeah, so if you can perceive it, then replace the word seeing with perceiving. If you can become aware of a feeling, then there's some item there that you can perceive with your mind's eye, mind's ear, mind's feeler, whatever it is. But you may disagree, though. I mean, this is tough to verify anyways. There's a lot of behaviorists out there who would say that everything we're saying right now is wrong. All this feeling mishmash is just unverifiable witchcraft. And, behaviorists will go in that direction and say that all that matters to sum up a person is their behavioral manifestations. Yeah?
He covered it.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, because you see your kid, right, and you have that feeling of love that you can see, you said, doesn't mean you can actually, I don't think you can see it love. Like I said, you can just perceive it, and you understand that there's a component of that person that engages you to have that emotion to them. There's some sort of attribute that causes it. Causes that sort of
if that's the case, then that would maybe strengthen. If say that's true, that would maybe strengthen the consciousness is physical argument. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but say you somehow prove that consciousness came from these crystals. I mean, like,
yeah.
What's like? So what? What you have to find what part of that crystal is called. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
That's my problem
It's
too.
just like magic that these crystals somehow. I mean, like,
Okay.
like what causes the crystals to have these consciousness? You have some kind of weird attribute to the crystals that nothing else has. Because like then why don't anything else?
Rocks.
Yeah. Why don't rocks have?
Or any, just pick anything.
But then you get into maybe everything is conscious.
Yeah. That's called idealism, the philosophy of idealism, or panpsychism, like David Scribina here in the department at UM Dearborn, is he's written a bunch of books on panpsychism, the idea that everything has thought and or consciousness in it. Like this paper looks like matter, but actually fundamentally it's consciousness. Now that should look like. That should look like this right here. This is an idealist position right here.
Does they have consciousness that they have this information?
Well, yeah, good. Very perceptive. If information is an aspect of consciousness, if that's true, then that would be an idealist position. So if there was non-conscious information, then no, this wouldn't be necessarily a panpsychist or idealist. It would involve this idea that everything is made of consciousness. So yeah, but good point, Nick. That's my same problem as well. Say you could find all these people, like an atom has the properties of a lattice structure, which is a crystal. And a lot of people, amateurs or professionals, have at least suggested in the past, maybe that's the mystery where consciousness is. It's in particles. Maybe just some particles or all of them, whatever. And then the same problem arises, though, as if you look at the consciousness in the brain, because if you look at the brain, the type of stuff that you would expect to find if there's consciousness there, you don't find. You just find meat and blood, right? Brain cells. So the same with quantum particles. If you look inside them, or a crystal, which is just made out of specific patterns of particles, those are the kinds of things you'd expect. You should look inside a crystal or an atom or a brain or something. If you see consciousness, and you're with consciousness, you're seeing consciousness, you should experience a consciousness gelling of that. And there's all of a sudden you should have new thoughts, feelings flood into you. You say, oh, and then you look away and it doesn't happen. You look back and it does, or something like that should happen.
That's kind of, I could be going way off, but like, if you experience new things, almost like you're gaining that consciousness.
Just what's up in the lower left hand corner.
Oh, did I just hit it?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Sorry.
Like, I could be like really far back with this, but like, if you experience new things, you kind of like gaining information, like you're now, you're like kind of like gaining that, like you're gaining that experience or something. So like. Yeah,
some philosophers like Samuel Beckett or Nietzsche will say you've got new reality created. Right. When you do that. Like you see a new painting, and it's a shape or structure you've never seen before, new reality is created.
Gelling.
Yeah. You're on the right track. Man, this is interesting. I was just thinking of this last night. That a painting could do what we just said. Maybe theoretically, you could. If you look at a painting and new consciousness is generated in you, where does the consciousness come from? Did you generate it yourself? Is it self-generated by your reaction to seeing these pigments on the screen or the canvas of a painting? Or is it the case that the painting has consciousness. There's some kind of symbiosis
Yeah.
between the two, where consciousness is not completely contained within you, and well, how do you know they're seeing a little bit different? Like, if I have a feeling, I bet you...
I mean, let's say you and I look at a picture, right?
Wait, real quick. If I have a feeling of love that's really intense, like I love that cat or something, and say you have a feeling of love that's really, really intense, and you love the gerbil, well, how do you know that we don't feel the exact same thing? So consciousness elements can be shared.
But we can't describe or share the exact
Yeah, we don't know if that's the case.
Right.
We may guess. And people assume this. If I say, oh, I'm bored, and everybody's like, oh, so am I. This is horrible. You're talking about gerbils and cats. So you all will assume in that moment that you're feeling roughly the same thing. You'll say, oh, I know what she's talking about. I feel it too. Now, does that mean really it's the same feeling there and here? So the same thing exists in two places and it's shared, therefore, in some way? Or is yours slightly different? Anyway, I interrupted you.
I don't remember.
Good points, though.
Yeah.
I mean, at least interesting. You sure? Oh, yeah. Because you have to
I'll remember it in like 10 minutes.
Okay, interrupt me back when you do. Okay, so anybody else? This is, yeah.
So basically, are you saying consciousness is displaced from object to, us?
What do you mean by displaced?
As in, it's there, I see it, it comes to me, and it becomes...
Oh, I'm just throwing that as a suggestion. I know, you're going to see later in the semester, you're going to see surprising, as we're going to go through some examples, you're going to see instances of telepathy. Low level telepathy existing between people. And not, I can hear, oh, I heard you say that. Oh, really? You think that? Not like that. Okay. But, like if you have a feeling, there may be a strong and measurable tendency for me to feel the same feeling to some degree upon you entering the room or something like that.
Shouldn't that become sign language?
Sure, yeah, sure. You have to do it. You have to do it in ways to avoid that. And people have done this. Separate the people only by put someone in a closed chamber where nothing can be, no information, no sense information can be detected outside of it. And then put the person, say the chamber's right here, and then the person's in there, and I go stand right here. And I was 50 feet over there, and I stand right over here. So they cannot perceive me. But if somehow you will measure a change in my consciousness, which correlates in a surprising way above chance levels to theirs. So you have to eliminate things like that if you're really going to discover this. And you'll all have to decide for yourself. So, but if it's true that there's some kind of telepathy, you'll decide for yourself later when we get to that. Then it would seem to imply one possibility is that my consciousness isn't just here in my head. It extends farther out, and it can bump into your consciousness. So if that's the case, of course, who knows if it is or not, then... But it could be, however, the case that you can measure consciousnesses influence each other across space. That means that there can be regions like right here, if that's true, where my consciousness exists to some degree. Okay, or here, or all around me. So it means consciousness can be floating around. If that's the case, then what's to prevent me from saying that painting has consciousness? So the things get weird when if you follow evidence and stuff, but that's how discoveries are made. Yeah. What's the, there was a quote I was just reading the other night. Not Einstein's, one of those famous physicists back, like Bohr or Heisenberg or something, back in the day, they said when a new empirical idea is presented, it is always first viewed as being ludicrous or something was the quote. Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, then that's Baroque music.
Baroque?
No, when I said music, just any type of music.
Oh,
When it plays, some people feel certain things, like inside of them, like, oh, I love this song. When you watch a movie, this really dramatic scene, you you hear the sound in the back playing really dramatically, you get kind of scared or like
Yeah.
But that's not, it's not physical though. You can feel it, but no one else.
What's not physical?
It's like consciousness, you know?
The sound experience? Yeah, the sound is just, so if I go like this, like that, okay, so I've altered everybody's brain structure by doing that. Because I've created a disturbance, which created a disturbance in the air, which sent out sound waves through the air, which hit your eardrum, which created a chemical change in your brain, and then you process that chemical change and call it sound. Now, is it always the case that when you get to okay, here, it takes about, a microsecond for you to have the experience after I do the clap, is there some point where the physical description falls away and there's only a non-physical description? So your consciousness, hearing sound, is no longer physical. So that just depends which position you take. Is consciousness physical? Then you would say there's a brain description in your brain chemistry, or nervous system chemistry, that can explain it. Or if you don't say it's physical, that happens to be the position I hold at the moment, then you would say, no, somehow the phenomenological experience of the sound that you hear is somehow related to and interacts with your brain chemistry, but they're not the same. Okay, so here's another argument, type 2. There's not enough information is known. This is a good one, really good one. Jean-Pierre Luminet of the Paris Observatory has allegedly discovered that the only shape for the universe, that the universe can be. I should say that, sorry. The only shape that the universe can be, in order to fit the data of what is known about the cosmic background radiation, is amazingly a dodecahedron. It's like a soccer ball, 12-sided object. Okay, so there's, you ever thought of that? There's geometrical solids. Here's a sphere. Here's a cube. These are types of solids. So the cube has 6 sides. The sphere has 1. And, so if you could keep going, triangles, blah, blah, blah. So one with 12, a geometrical item with 12 sides, it's called a dodecahedron, right? Does everybody already know why this is interesting? Philosophy. Anybody a philosophy student?
Plato discovered it.
Yeah, good. That's what, did you read ahead or just know?
Yeah, it's got a picture and I read it.
Oh, okay. You should have said, no, I didn't do it. Wow, you're smart. There's a big footnote talking about, there's an abstract in the article. This is one guy who discovered it, but it's a very strong discovery following some empirical data, so it's not just a theory, it's based on some good empirical work. So anyway, yeah, here's point 2. Plato, who's probably my favorite philosopher, he said that 2,500 years ago. He said, yep, the universe is the shape of a dodecahedron. And now there's a sort of not frenzy, but there's a lot of people in astronomy studying the shape of the universe who think that this discovery made in this footnote here is that's what matches the empirical data. Okay, when you try to study the whole structure of the universe. So conclusion. Tell me if you think this is a good conclusion. So we got 2 data points. Really, they're just reports. Plato said this, and these other scientists are saying they discovered that. So those are 2 report statements. So pretty good so far. Now check out this conclusion. So therefore, Plato knew about the shape of the universe almost 2,500 years ago before modern science learned about it. Okay, good or bad? Yeah, it's good, but there's one problem. It's not the only story, right? You could have another conclusion. Remember how we had arguments had 2 conclusions? A coincidence. It could be a coincidence. Okay, so that should be another. But this is, but forgetting that for a second, it does seem like that follows. There's some, maybe you disagree, but it seems like there's some argument structure to some degree existing there, yeah?
I feel like it's like a common thing in this class, like 2,500 years ago or something, like someone...
Oh, yeah.
Now we find out, like, it's
history
true. I mean, like,
so.
I read something the other day, like, some ancient civilization was drawing pictures of helicopters. Like, how could they...
Oh, yeah,
Egyptian
hieroglyphs and stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, Do you think it's all just coincidence, or is it actually something?
Do I think it's coincidence? You want my opinion, or are you just chatting like, hey, you think it's coincidence?
I just don't think, like, you don't really hear about it really, like, on, you don't really hear too much.
You do on, like, the educational,
Okay.
which are turning really into the conspiracy channels, like History, Discovery, Science Channel, and so forth. They'll talk about that a bit.
It just keeps coming up and up again, like, oh, someone found this. Oh.
I kind of hold the same. But Plato, there's so many things that you find in Plato's book, the Timaeus, which we read parts of in my intro class last semester, that all of a sudden you find popping up now, so that's why it's kind of interesting. Okay, so fallacies are cases where people try to come to conclusions not by logical inference. Got that? That's a very important sentence, or part of the sentence. You try to come to a conclusion not with an inference, but something else. Like, I'm going to beat the hell out of you unless you believe what I'm saying. See? I'm not using evidence, I'm using might. Okay? Power. But rather, so you don't come to a conclusion by inference, but rather by tricking people in some way to believe there is an argument or conclusion when there is in fact not one. Okay? Examples. Here's an argument. Alright, guys, up to the master structure. They're intended for you. The only way to avoid this is to invade. Therefore, let's get them. Okay? It's very, very clever. How many people did this trick? 200 million in America? 90% of the population back in 2003. But it involves a specific fallacy. Anybody know what the fallacy is? I already told you all what it is. Unverified. Suppressed. It's called the suppressed evidence fallacy, which is a specific type of fallacy that you'll see show up later in these notes, because we'll cover many cases of this. So yeah, it's very clever, and many won't understand because they're all stirred up in fear, so they won't understand that premise 1 is a big problem. Or actually, so is premise 2. Premise 2 is the same issue. Okay, so the fallacies we'll cover through the remainder of these lecture notes are specific repeating cases. Okay, here's what we're going to do in these notes. We're going to just go through 1 through 60 or whatever. We're going to cover specific fallacies. One's called suppressed evidence fallacy. One's called a non sequitur, an ad hominem. Or one is called, some of you may have heard the term ad hominem. So what happens is these fallacies repeat over and over. In society, people use these over and over. And they never notice that their argumentation is completely erroneous when they do this. Okay, in fact, these make up consciousness and civilization to a large degree. All right, so oddly, people fail to notice even after thousands of instances of being exposed or using these fallacies, they'll fail to notice that they exist. As your book, Voice of Reason says, it can be hard to avoid or detect precisely because they're so commonplace. It's a good quote. So, for example, you just saw suppressed evidence fallacy, but that's commonplace. You see suppressed evidence fallacy.